Awesome. Welcome to productbook.club. This is a not-for-profit initiative by Pi Foundation. It is for helping product makers like you, me, and all of the other sprinters in this group to become better product makers through reading, through education, and community activities like this. And most importantly, this is 14th book of 24 books of this series. We have moved to a 2-week schedule. This means that readers and reading sprinters have more time to read and assimilate the reviews for us. People who are lazy like me can take 30 minutes and, kind of get the whole concepts from dedicated sprinters like them. You can access all our previous videos, all of them in Product Book Club on YouTube. You can see how the reviews are conducted. And if it inspires you, you can join us for the last and final review of 2022. What is today's book? It's the product book. It's a definitive guide on becoming a great product manager. And today the sprinters, you can see them with the tag RS sitting on the sidelines, waiting to give us the review. And before I give it off to them, I just want to take a minute more to kind of tell you that there are other books in the pipeline. As we said, 24 books and 15 to more. There are other books that are coming up in the next year. You can look up the schedule. If you want to read and finish them on your own timeline, you can. Or if you just want to, see that what all you can learn to become a product manager, you can get them on our website. So what happens in a product book review? We distill 10 big ideas under 30 minutes. This means that the sprinters have spent enough time to come and crystallize those ideas down. They give you what you need to know. So if you're intrigued, you will learn more. And if you want to learn exactly what it is there, you'll also get those aspects here. And the best way to do it is to attend here. Seriously, I've been seeing it for the last 15 books. I've learned a lot more by just passively attending all the book reviews. Over to you, sprinters. You can get started now, and I'm excited to see what all gems you're going to share with us. Get started. Good luck.
Hey, thank you, Madhuri. Well, let me present my screen. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, all good. Yeah, can proceed.
Perfect. Hey, Madhuri. Thank you so much. Hi, folks. Hi, thanks for tuning in, taking the time out of your Sunday and joining in. So, perfect. Without further ado, jumping straight into it, right? So, the product book, right? Just want to set a premise over here, right? I think I'm sure people who are there in all the social media platform, product management is probably the most exciting field that's out there in the tech, right? But despite that, there's actually no, let's say, formalized career path. There's no bachelor's of product management out there, right? I mean, so before we get like this IIT of coaching centers for product, let's look into the next closest resource that we have, which is books, right? And what better way to start than Amazon's bestseller, which is the product book. So this has been put up by the Product School. It's actually an international learning platform created by product managers for product managers. This is a great place to start for all the aspiring product managers and also product managers who are established and probably want a refresher of what it feels like, right? So you definitely touched on this book. So just in a nutshell, right? Like what does this book actually tell? It talks about the best practices of the industry, fundamentals of product management. How do you communicate with a team, optimizing a product building workflow, and of course, how do you build the right product and ship the right product? That's all about this why I read this book. So this has been the sprinters, 5 of us who've been like grilling for the last 2 weeks. I'm kidding. We've been struggling only the last 2 days to actually cramp up this book. That's the honest truth. So we have Navya, who's a designer, Nakshita, again a designer, Arjun, robotic process automation evangelist, Payal, a product manager, and myself, Arvind. So we jump straight into it, right? So we have, like how Madhuri said, we've kind of like distilled down the 304 pages book into 10 broad ideas, which we'll be stroking through for the next 30 minutes. So before we jump into the ideas, right, want to set a premise, right? What is PM, right? And what do they do? I think we have about 19 people in the chat. So keep fighting up chat, right? What is PM, right? What is the full form of PM, right? Just go ahead, be as creative as possible. If you guys want to shoot something, go ahead. Whatever comes to you, right? There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Just go for it, right? Okay. Okay, hope you all skipped your evening coffee. Clearly, no messages coming on, but I'll just jump straight into it, right? See, the premise over here is the word PM, right? If you generally ask, the constant thing that we get asked, hey, is that a project manager? Wait, no, it's program manager, or rather a product manager, right? A classic question we keep asking is, hey, what's the difference between a project manager, product manager, program manager? To be very honest, the context is different from companies to companies, right? Different companies label it differently. But if I have to just talk about what a product manager does, right? Just want to take a leaf from this book, right? I'm sure all of you have seen an orchestra, a fancy guy, will be waving his arm and music actually playing all through his arms, right? Which we actually think his arms are playing the music, but actually people following his tunes, right? You see the person over here in the white shirt, right? This person conducts the orchestra. There are different instruments out there, different players out there. He brings them all on the same page, and his objective is to give a stellar performance. That's what a product manager does. Tries to bring everybody on the same page and deliver something which the audience really like. But hey, Arvind, what does a project manager does, right? Project manager takes care of the schedule. As you see over here, there are a lot of people who are actually playing their instruments. The project manager ensures, hey, everybody come on time, everybody sit, that everybody actually practices, right? In another nutshell, it's Madhuri for the book club, right? That's the closest stuff which we could say that, right? And a program manager. Okay, last but not the least, program manager, what they do is they take care of the scheduling of the orchestra. The practices happen. There's someone who wants to give a stellar performance, but where do they do it, right? Which is the stage? What's going to be the financing for it? What's going to be the, let's say, ticketing for it, right? That's what a program manager does. So if I have to draw the parallel, right? Project manager owns the schedule. Program manager owns the execution of it. Product manager to just give a product that customers really like, right? That's the premise. That's the start of this book. Having said that, let's jump straight into the first idea. Over to Payal.
Thanks, Arvind, for setting a very good context here. I think we already have cheers for that. So love that. This is the first idea, the first big idea that we have here is about how do we even go about finding what do we build for? What is that we build for? And this is a classic problem that all of us as PMs face. What is the next thing that we build in our product? How do we find that? So the book gives a very basic, so it brings us to the very fundamentals of it, which is, stick to your whys, stick to the whys of the company. Next slide. Why does the company exist? Many of us don't, go to the mission statement of our companies, understanding what is the core of the company. Many of us, even as PMs, we are so engrossed in our day-to-day product activities that we hardly go back to understand the company's key objective, the key customers, the key guideline that the company is there for. So Simon Sinek in his book, Starting with Why, also emphasizes on this fact that start with the why. Why is the company there? What is it aiming to do? That's the first big idea. And, we can move to the next one. Next slide. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, I've talked about this. So, I would just like to take this example here and, spend some time here talking about how do we even understand it better. So, for example, Netflix, for example, they are an entertainment company. But do you think this is the kind of entertainment they could be doing next, where there's a live show happening in a restaurant kind of a thing? This is also entertainment. But does this align with their why? Does this align with what is their core mission like? Probably not. Their core mission is to give accessibility anywhere, everywhere, to everybody. This doesn't align with their mission statement. So as long as if we don't understand the why of the company, if we don't understand, what is the core offer, what is the core thing that our company is there for, I think we are missing on the key point there. Moving to the next big idea, which is about the customer segmentation. Now we've all understood, we all understand what the customer is, but why is customer segmentation so important? So moving to the next slide. Now, once we understand what is the core customer segment that we are serving, why does it become important to even further understand the different customer segments? So I'll take this example of suppose an app which is serving the bicyclists, which is meant for cyclists. Now, within within the core segment of cyclists, there can be different different kind of people here, looking with different interests. Some could be interested in bicycles itself. Some could be interested in accessories like helmets, the cycling attire, etc. Some could be even, be interested in buying some cycle parts for their existing cycles. Bicycle repairs could be another interest area for some of them. And then, there can be totally another kind of segment of people who are interested in the rental. So, these are all different variabilities within the core customer segment, which is cyclists. Now, how do we, if we, how do we understand the different orientations of these different customer segments? So user personas can be a very good way of understanding the different customer segments, where we can use the user persona to actually represent each of our different customer segments and understand these different customer segments better, because it can be very overwhelming to understand and work on a product with such a variable customer segments. So user segments can have, you can have multiple user personas for your product, wherein each user persona is representing a different customer segment. It can talk about the different interests, the different demographics, the different pain points, the different, the loyalties, different lifestyles. All those things can be added here, which are relevant for your product in the user personas. And this can be your guiding, this can help you understand the user behavior, the user journeys. Using your user journeys, you can even then, then align your, the problem statements that you want to solve for. How are they being solved as of now by these users? What is that you can do to delight these user segments, the customer segments, to solve the problem with your product better? So that's how customer segmentation become very important for giving the right features out there to your customers. So I will now request our next reviewer to take up the next third idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayur. So continuing from trial, I think most of you would probably have some ideas for Netflix setting a context. So I'll talk about validating your ideas. And something that I've also realized, and what was mentioned in the book, was that it's very hard for us to grasp that, our ideas are just opinions and they might not necessarily be the truth. So they're probably not just facts, right? And the idea that it's okay to be wrong. So what we actually want to do is to figure out that if we're wrong, we can as soon as possible course correct ourselves, and we don't have to put a lot of resources right into building the wrong product, right? So this is where validating might really help us to understand if you're building the right product or not. So if you follow like a scientific approach, that is, you come up with your ideas, a hypothesis, and then you move on to validating or invalidate your idea, I think that is when you'll actually be on the right track. And these validations could possibly take a lot of forms. So moving forward, let's discuss the kind of validations. So some ideas might actually just need internal validation, right? You could look at the existing data that you have, the analytics, see how certain metrics are performing, the KPIs are doing, and then decide if you want to proceed ahead with the new feature, right? While with other ideas, especially if you're looking at new products or major new features, you'll want to talk to your real customers. Could you move the slide ahead? Yeah. So talking to your customers, what this would do is that you would understand the customer pain needs and goals so thoroughly that you would be able to validate if that is the idea that you should actually work on. Now, another validation method, especially if you're looking for a new product, would be to build a MVP, which is a minimum viable product, and then test it out with the users. If you have an existing product, one thing also that you could do is that you could run A and B tests, especially if your idea is centered around changing certain workflows. So say you could compare two versions of the same thing. So if you're working on a sign up flow, you could see which one would achieve a better metric for you. Now, the fourth idea that we came across was prioritization. So now let's say that you're a brilliant PM and you have 10 brilliant ideas and you have all of these great opportunities to work on. There are certain constraints that will come your way. One, of course, that you have very limited resources. It could also be that your ideas are not aligned with the larger business goal. Or it could be just that your stakeholders are stubborn and don't want to listen to you. So then how do you decide, what to build? That is when prioritization will come into play. So moving forward, every feature that you have, right, any feature would have an opportunity cost. So if you're building that feature, it means that you're not building some other feature. This is always going to be a trade-off. So as a PM, what you should do is strategically see which feature would you like to build and which one matters the most. So one very helpful litmus test that the book mentioned is that you could see if it aligns with your company goals. If it doesn't, you should definitely table it there and then and work on some other feature. Now, there are also a number of ways with which you can prioritize. So one of which is, say if you know the product and you have a product, you would know how important each feature is, right? How much each feature is used and so on. So what you could do, Arvind, could you move to the previous slide? Yeah. So what you could do is you could take different features A and B, and you could map it according to customer satisfaction and importance. So you would know that if there is an important feature that has low satisfaction, that is the one that you want to focus on. Moving forward, you could also use a Kano model. Now, Kano model is basically categorizes all your features into three different kinds of features. So one of them being basic features. So basic features would be, say, if you're working for a company like Ola, it would be a feature that your customers would definitely expect in your product. So in this case, it would be that you should have cab drivers that you can book, right? Then there are performance features, which are satisfiers. So these are the things that the customers will look at to actually judge your app. So for in the case of Ola, it would be how fast are you able to book a ride? Then there are excitement features, which are delightful features, which are the unexpected wow features that your app is going to build. So in the same example, Ola Play would be a very good example for this, because while riding, you could also control the music system, right? That's nice. So now once you have all of that, Kano model would help you map these features and according to satisfaction and your investment. So now you can decide which feature you would want to take forward. Moving forward, another very simple idea would be to just look at map the value versus the cost. So every feature that you have would have a customer value attached to it, and it would also have a cost of building it. So you should know that if there is a feature that costs very low but has a very high value, that is a feature that would definitely prioritize. Now I think we could move to the fifth idea.
Yeah, so now Navya has talked about how you can come up with ideas and how do you validate your ideas. So now you have an idea which you're going to work upon. So you come up with a hypothesis on how that idea will solve your problem. And the next step would obviously be to understand if your hypothesis is right. So one way to do that is to interview customers and understand their needs. So it's very necessary to go out and talk to them, current and potential customers, to find out if even the people who we are thinking of as customers are the right customers. So you find out what problems they are seeking to solve, if how they're solving it right now, and what we can intervene in. So these customer interviews obviously take a lot of preparation. You need to write down what all things you're assuming about the customers when you are making the persona and validate it against them. You should also identify what kind of trade-offs they're willing to make for the gains that you're offering. Like, for example, how much of function and fashionable gain would a smartwatch provide that a person is willing to give away their sentimental watch to use it. So the next slide. Yeah. So the next, to find out if you're asking the right questions, you should always make sure that you're hiding the right answer. So people are not answering so as to please you, because even if they realize it or not, they are always going to try to give you the right answer, and that is not what you want. You want to know how they're currently dealing with the problem. not something that they might do. So you even take off their ideal self from the situation. The next slide. You also make sure to watch out for confirmation bias when you're conducting these interviews, which is when we look only for evidence that confirms our hypothesis and ignore the evidence that contradicts it, because our hypothesis might be wrong even now, and that is okay. The next slide. So customer interviews are not a way for people to give you a wish list. It's not to understand how people will respond to your idea, because customers do not really know what they need. They can give you a huge wish list, and it's your job to figure out their underlying pains and how your idea will address them. Like the Henry Ford's faster horse example that is mentioned here. So that is when Henry Ford asked what people wanted, they said they would have wanted a faster horse. So the point of it was to understand that their desire was to get to the destination faster, and restating that desire and fixing the core problem. The next slide. So it's also valuable to, that when you ask questions, you get the customers to tell you a story instead of just a simple yes or no, because this will automatically give you a lot of insight into the person. You can get the background context, you'll find out why they're using the product, what their goals were, what problems they were facing, what they prioritized, and what their emotions were through the whole process. So each interview will help you figure out if your hypothesis addresses a pain point that the customer has, and whether the customer has tried to solve it before, or even if the customer wants this pain point fixed. So you should, by the end of it, you should have a good sense of how your product can fit into the person's day-to-day life and what it would replace. And if the person doesn't want to buy your product, then why? Yeah.
You're awesome, Akshita. So folks, quickly, we have crossed the half-line mark. We are just 4 more points away before we close that up, right? So you've listened to your customers, you've done your prioritization, right? What next, right? Like this is a really important idea that we got from the book, is the power of storytelling, right? But before we jump into storytelling, right? Let's just quickly see, right? Engineers, they actually write the code. Designers design the product. Marketers write the product copy, right? So what do product managers do, right? Again, recalling over there, right? Dude, we are just paid to think. And once you think, you can't keep the thoughts to yourself. You should know to communicate. That's where the power of storytelling comes, right? You could be a great imaginative person, but if you don't think and communicate it properly, nothing's going to get built and you're not going to get paid, right? So that's where the power of storytelling comes. So who are you going to speak to, right? Who are you going to communicate with? There are 2 set of personas over there. First is internal stakeholders, your engineers, your marketers, your sales, your investors, your founders. Convince them, like all the prioritization technique that you see, you should give them a convincing, right? Like an answer on why this product will solve a customer's problem, right? Second is external stakeholders. Hey, you built a product. You still have to get a customer to use it, right? You still need to go spin a story over there. So external stakeholder communication is really, really important. So what are the different ways and means with which a product manager actually spins their story, right? There are 2 methods. One is, of course, by talking. You could do your webinars, you can do your videos where you can actually share out a piece of your mind through verbally. But most importantly, this should be a part of like a product manager's toolkit, is a product requirement document, right? A PRD, in a common parlance that we say that. If you look at the bullets on the left, right, what does a PRD usually contain? It usually contains just 2 very simple, important things. Hey, what is the problem statement they're going to solve? What is the opportunity ahead that we as a company are going to go and get it over there, right? And define the success metric. Hey, if we reach that destination, what's going to be that outcome? What's going to move the bottom line and top line of a business, right? That's all a PRD contains. A PRD is not a dictating document. It's not going to tell, hey, designer, do A, B, C, or an engineer, write your code of line, in a particular way, right? We don't do that, right? Product managers don't do that. And it's not a to-do list, right? So the very, very fundamental of a product requirement document is to talk about why. And once we reach that why, what will be the outcome? And so another very interesting example, it's not part of the book, but definitely I thought I'd share that with you. Amazon has this really cool culture, right? Which is called as PR FAQs. So what they do is they force every product manager to actually write a PR document, which is a press release document, which is actually given to their end users, preempting the answers what a customer could get. A very innovative approach, probably not part of this version of the book. Maybe after this call, they'll add in the next version of the book. But yeah, so that's a very, very important part of storytelling. convince your stakeholders only with the power of story. So back to Akshita.
Yes, so now you've got your ideas, you've got your hypothesis, and now you just want to start building. But again, it is good to just test and validate before getting into the whole part that involves all the money, if what you're doing is the right direction. So how do you do that? That is through an MVP, which Navya had mentioned before. So an MVP, or a minimal viable product, is an inexpensive way to put together your most important features, and it's not actually how the real product will be implemented, but just enough so that you can understand if the opportunity is worth pursuing with your potential end customers. There are many types of MVPs. The simplest one would be a pre-order MVP. So in this, you describe the future product, you describe your entire solution in an engaging way, so that and attract the consumers to pay for it before it actually releases. So this way you can gauge your early adopters, you can get funds for your product development. So it's very reasonable. So it's very reasonable if you have a unique or an exciting offer, and it works well when you need a large customer base to even get started. The next kind of MVP is the fake door MVP, which is also a little similar to the pre-order one, but requires a little more effort. So you add all the UX elements that you would need to trigger the interaction, but rather than delivering the final feature, you just give them a notification saying that the feature is coming soon. So this way you understand how many people would use your fake door. Like, for example, if you're adding a group chat feature to your existing app, you just put the chat button and see how many people really want to use it. The next kind would be the concierge MVP. So this is a little complicated one where you take the automation out of the process you want to automate through your solution. So instead of building the prototype, you give a style of service manually to a small group of test customers. So this type of MVP is used when your potential clients can be met offline, or if customer satisfaction is what you're looking for. So during this process, you'll explicitly focus on the steps which will help you figure out an answer, like what questions matter, what potential hurdles will you face, and find out more about your consumers. So an example would be like giving an app for generating shopping lists tailored to an individual's needs. You actually have a person who roams around with the consumers and gives them a recipe list or a grocery list. And the last kind would be a Wizard of Oz MVP. So it's a variation of the concierge MVP, but instead of the consumer being aware that he's helped by a human, it is made to look like the whole process is automated, like this picture over here. So the benefit of this is that you strip away some of the bias that the customer would have in giving negative reviews because they would think that, a human is behind it. So it's good when you have like a complicated functioning system, and it's easier and cheaper to mimic it by a human when it's in its initial stage, and this will give you feedback very quickly. So this was done by Zappos, who is one of the largest footwear retailers right now in the USA, way back in 1999. So that time the founder wasn't sure that people will actively buy footwear online and decided to test it. So what he did was he went to the mall, he took photos of shoes and put them in a catalog on his website. And whenever shoes were ordered, he would go buy them and then ship it to the customer. But what the customer thought was that the whole process was automated. The next slide. So these were the many kinds of MVPs, but the key to remember when you're building an MVP is that you want to keep it simple and cheap. You don't want to spend so much time deciding the perfect MVP that you're done even before you're started, because even if it's positive or negative, it's still an experiment and it will be scrapped by the end of it.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've seen how to pick up an idea, how do we kind of identify the hypothesis, build and test the product. But here comes the human element to it, relationships and team building. We all know these days, any corporate company you work for, most of them have global teams and they're all working remotely and across time zones. So what does that mean? You will have to deal with people who are not available to you in your office, and also they are totally working on a different time zone, which you are not looking at. Next slide. So that's why the team building becomes very important. If I was physically present in an office with all my colleagues, then we will normally have like a lot of opportunities to meet them informally, get to know about them, whether it is like a uh, when we're just having a chat around the water cooler or something like that. But these options don't exist in this virtual or the global mode. So that's why it's always important to have informal one-on-one video calls, get to know the person, so that when you have that personal touch established within your teammates, whenever anybody wants to speak about how the project is going, how the product is shaping up, if there are any challenges, it becomes easy among your team members to collaborate, because they don't have that icebreaker issue where they're like always thinking about, oh, what if that person does not take it right? Because they already had personal conversations, they know about each other, they feel more comfortable about talking to each other. And then virtual happy hours. Earlier, after office, we would like spend some time outside, go to have some chats or have some drinks, whatever it is. Now this again does not exist because you're there all by yourself again. So just get together. It may be on just a Zoom call or a Google Meet, and then just have a drink together, have some food together. We know it looks a little awkward, but then that's the kind of global organizations we are building it. And we got to find out ways to engage ourselves and also feel comfortable with all our team members, so that the objective of getting together to build a product is achieved. Next slide. And next, the definition of the word done. Because we are not together, we won't have an opportunity to kind of actively discuss with others. That's where the word done is very important, because a team member may think done just means that he has completed his work and ready for review. Whereas the other team member thinks that, oh, done means it's all, the work is completed and it is reviewed, ready to be launched. But that is not the case. We have not, if the word done is not defined clearly, that's where there is a lot of miscommunication. And when you're about to like release a product, you don't want to have any last minute surprises. So that's why it's very important on this. Next slide. And then communication. This is another very key aspect because of the different time zones we work in. Before, we used to have like daily stand-up calls where we discuss about what I did for today, what am I going to do? I mean, what I did yesterday, what am I going to do today? And what is it that is stopping me to do what I'm expected to do today? But now, even though you have calls, not all of your team members are available to join online because of the time zones they work in. So that's where it becomes very important to ensure like you send out communication, whether it's requirements, whether there are some goals or there are some decisions which were made. You want to ensure this is always passed on to the next team, which is working in a different time zone than yours. So that way, it is not about bombarding everybody with a total chats all through the day. Instead, you pick up times at the beginning of your day to look at what was kind of communicated from the previous team, and then you continue with your work, and then you communicate your updates to the next team. That way, everybody is in sync, but they don't have overwhelming chats to look at. Next slide. Next, so now we are kind of built the products. Now we want to understand what is the real worth of a product. Building the product is one level, but knowing what's the worth of it, what does the customer feel? So we want to understand how can we measure what the product is worth about. This is all about looking at the key performance metrics. So there are two ways to look at it. One is called as vanity metrics and the other one is called actionable metrics. Vanity metrics is something which the company would be proud of when they're talking on the media, they're showcasing on the social media, etc. Whereas it does not give you any actionable insight on what to do to improve on that. For example, like if you launch a product on a Google's Play Store or Apple's App Store and you get like 5,000 downloads, that's a good start if you have just started on day one and you have so many downloads. But this does not give you any information about how many people really logged into your product and they have taken a product, if they have purchased a product, or if they have used a service. So that's where you need actionable metrics, which will give you data about how many people navigated through multiple pages, if they placed an order, what is the kind of user journey in the app. So that is where actionable metrics becomes very important. One of the key actionable metrics you can look at is the net promoter score. So this is excuse me, net promoter score. This has a range from 0 to 10. On the higher side, it's the best feedback you would want to get it, and 0 is like this is not what you desire for. If you look at the score of 9 and 10 in this case, they are called as promoters. That means the users are absolutely loving your product, and then they're also going to promote your product in their circle. So these are the kind of people whom you want to get as your customers, because it makes your life easier and also gets you get a lot of help in terms of marketing your product. The next set of people are the ones who give you ratings such as 7 and 8. These are the people, they are like passivers. So they use the product, they kind of like it, but they don't like it to an extent they want to be an ambassador of yours. So these are okay people to have, but your goal should be to ensure how you can provide them additional value so that they can rate you on a scale of 9 or 10. And then anything from 0 to 6 is called detractors. That means they did not really enjoy your service. So that means they have an option to go out to your competitors and also talk negative things about your product. So these are the folks whom you want to ensure, like, what is going wrong in their journey? What can you fix it so that you can gradually move them to your positive scale? When there was a survey done among 400 companies, the net promoter score, the range would be like -100 to 100. In this case, it was an average of 16. That means most of the companies have a long way to go in terms of understanding their product and improving it so that the customers absolutely love it. Next slide. And the last idea in this book is customer lifetime value. How do you understand how much revenue you can bring from a single customer? And attached to this customer lifetime value needs to be more than how much you have spent to acquire that particular customer. For example, if your customer acquisition cost is $100, but your customer lifetime value, that is like over the product's life cycle, you're only going to make like $20. This is not a good case to be, because you spent a lot more than what you're getting from it. So that's why you got to be critical about how much you can afford to spend to get a particular customer so that your profits and margins are on your positive side. And again, attracting a customer is different from building loyalty and retain. So what do I mean by this? When you're just getting started, you want to attract a customer. So how do you attract a customer? By giving him or her a good value proposition. That means you're telling him how your product can solve his problem. And that's when he'll probably sign up for your service, or he'll download his app, or he'll create an account on your website. And then once you have provided this value to him, and then if you have to continue to have him as a loyal customer, you need to ensure your product has the highest quality, because the initial phase of just getting attracted by the value proposition is now over, and he looks at how good is the product for him to use on a continuous basis. So that's where you build loyalty with the quality. And then in terms of retaining, when you have a great product and your business is doing good, there's a lot of competition around you, and the competitors will also catch up with you. That means they're going to build more amazing features than you. They'll try to beat you in terms of the quality and everything. So that's where you have to ensure your product has enough innovation inbuilt in every product release, so that the customer is not, he may look at the other products, but he is still assured that he's getting the best of the needed features in your own product, so that he does not get away to the your competition. Next slide. So next one, these are a couple of marketing metrics which is very important to understand. We'll not get into in-depth of it, but I'll just like to give you a glimpse of what all this means, because we spoke about the customer lifetime value. So the short form for this is like CLV. So that is the amount of money you would make from a single customer over the product's life cycle. CAC, in short form, it's called as CAC, is the customer acquisition cost. How much money do you spend to acquire a specific customer? And then CPC, cost per click. So whenever you are publishing ads on any social platforms or like Google ads, Facebook ads, you need to understand how much do you have to pay whenever anyone clicks on your ad. So that is the cost per click. And then CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. You show an ad to like probably like 10,000 people, and then only 1,000 people look at that particular ad and respond. So that's where the CPM becomes important, so that it is the cost per 1,000 impressions of how many people did take a look at it. So these are some of the initial metrics you can look at. There's a lot more details available in the book so that you can read through all of this. So that's all about the 10 ideas which we wanted to share across with all of you. Happy to share any if you have any questions, happy to share our insights and whatever we have read through so far. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Congratulations on finishing the review. A big round of applause for all of you. Folks in the chat, put down anything that you found well, anything you want to share with the team. And more importantly, this is a very important slide for me because it's NPS for me, which is, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5? Tell us. You can put it down in the chat. Folks, keep an eye on the chat, see how people are responding to your review. 5, 5, 5. Awesome. Amazing. You're getting an overall 5 out of 5.
Also, Madhuri, just want to add on, like, this book is available free of cost on the Product School website. So you can just take a look at it, download the PDF version, which is available, and then you get an opportunity to go through the entire book. There's a lot more ideas. We had to really work with all the team members to condense it to the 10 ideas. Probably we had anywhere around like 15 to 20 ideas listed, but then we had to take the common ideas and the top ones. So there's an opportunity to learn more from this book. So feel free on that.
Absolutely. This was one of the most concise books I've read, and this review is more concise than the book that is out there. You've received 5 on 5 rating from almost everybody in this Zoom call. So amazing. Congrats to the sprinters once again. Right. So yes, if you have any questions, you can put down in the WhatsApp group if you're part of them, or you can also put them in the chat. We'll take them. Before we jump off the call, I have one major update about the upcoming book, right? So, here's the thing. What are we going to review next? As a part of the Product Book Club, we choose a book every 2 weeks. And we review it and take it together. You see the review sprinters going through the reading and the sprinting. So this happens in an accountability group, and people actually pay to join it. If you're done with the review, like the sprinters today, you get your money back. So this is kind of, keeping you holding that, hey, this is a benefit that you get back once you're done. So what are we reviewing next? We're going to review The Lean Startup, the most famous book. I myself have not read it. I might read it along with the sprinters this time. And if you want to join in, you can just scan the QR code and pay for it and join it. You'll have a direct access to the WhatsApp group. This review is on December 11th, and you'll be able to get started from tomorrow onwards. Any questions on this? I'll also put the link on the chat. If no other questions, how to join the WhatsApp group. So you can go to productbook.club and there's a wait list. You can sign up on the form. We will invite you out to the WhatsApp group. But if you want to join for the accountability group specifically for the Eric Ries book, and you want to review it like the sprinters today, you can use the link out there. And what happens there in a sprinting group? Typically in a sprint group, there's a reading sprint, which is sprint 1, where people are actually reading it end to end, sharing their thoughts in the group. And the sprint 2, which is the week 2, they are going to go ahead and share the top 10 points, prepare the presentation, learn how to present. And as usual, last minute, we will do it on Sunday rather than Saturday and get it done, right? It's like a group project everybody didn't want to do after college. That's that. Any thoughts from the sprinters before we wind up? How was your experience? Yes, I'm sharing the link. Yeah.
It was a great experience to be a part of this group because like me not having a real background in terms of as a product manager, but then it's always a good opportunity to kind of learn and look at different topics, which is outside of your expertise. So that gives us a lot more perspective about how do we approach different aspects. And it's always good to have newer skill sets in the kitty.
I think
I
I
would
I
also like,
relate with Arjun. It was really nice, especially because you were always there encouraging us to read every day across the 2 weeks. And that is the only reason why I finished the book. Otherwise, I really would not have. So accountability wise was perfect.
I would
amazing.
like to add here, just as an additional point. So apart, the reading part, which is one thing. I think we get a lot of new skills to acquire in this group, which is also distilling those what you read in form of ideas and crisply explaining them and putting them in a slide, reviewing them. So there's a lot of new skills that you acquire with this group. So it was very helpful.
Amazing. Amazing to hear all of this.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I would agree with Navya, Payal, and Arjun. It was really good. And even as so me and Navya are really just starting out. And it was very, very informative. And it was something that I didn't think I would be able to complete because I'm not even a person who reads nonfiction books, really. So it was great having this to do it.
Awesome. That's amazing to hear all of this. I love the fact that all of you came together there that got it done. We're looking forward to see all your individual reviews up on LinkedIn or wherever you post it. Share it out in the WhatsApp group so people can learn from your learnings respectively. Yeah. Some questions are popping up in the chat below. If you would like to take them, go ahead, take them. Any one of you can answer them. So I'll read out the question. What for B2B product, which product metrics are required? Anybody from a B2B product here?
Yeah.
Yes, Arvind.
Hey, Pradman. So that's very contextual, right? I think you have to nail down your ask because B2B is a huge space, right? You have to nail down your ask. Specifically, of any company in specific that you want to ask, or you want to have a blanket question?
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
So I want to basically ask for the B2B because B2C have a last space and we can target the NPS and all these things very easily. But for a B2B marketplace, it's like quite customer centric. The customer want to do the panel is like this, or the customer have some requirement. We have to change that things accordingly. For
Do you have any company in particular, like any like B2B, B2B SaaS, B2B?
I am in
e-commerce?
a SaaS company like Salesforce Marketplace. So
Okay.
I just want to know on that context.
Right. Okay. So I mean, there are a lot of metrics, right? Metrics will be broken into two buckets. One is leading and lagging metric can be broken into two buckets. But I think given the the recession window that's happening, focus on profitability, right? B2B or B2C, whatever it is. Bottom line is one thing. Profitability, that's going to be the North Star metric where everybody's going to do it. But there are a lot of articles, probably I could just share something with you. Context, I work with Freshworks, so very similar to what Salesforce do. So I could share that with you later.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
So-
hello everyone.
Go ahead.
I'm Anupama, and those who don't know me, I work for ADP. I would like to answer this question specifically about B2B because I'm working as a product manager already, and it is not very generic. So it depends on what phase you are in. So there are typically 3 phases. So when you start up, and then you retain, and then you grow, and then you settle, and later the sunset. So it depends on the criteria, but the typical B2B success is on the number of clients user experience. I hope that answers.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Absolutely. There is a link on benchmarks. We will share that out in WhatsApp soon. Yeah. Awesome. There is an additional question here. What a product, let me rephrase the sentence. In case the NPS score is not increasing, like after taking consistent feedback or anything, what does a product manager need to do? Anybody from the reading sprint wants to answer this?
I would like to take this. So specifically, if you're not getting the NPS score, you also have more details about like what is going wrong in your product. So it's always advised to connect with people, even though they have given you bad score, that does not mean that they're not approachable. So most of the times it is always easier to approach them, talk to them, have a conversation, and get to know in depth about, because they are the ones who are going to give you more feedback about which are the critical components which we are missing, due to which they are not happy with it. So that actually their feedback is very helpful for the product teams. And then if you're able to incorporate, that's great. If it is not, you can always have an option to tell them why you are not able to do it. For example, if your product focus is only on startups, but then for some reason a large customer has purchased it and they have a total new set of requirements which you may not be able to cater to. For example, like if your product is just to be used for like under 30 people or so, but then a company with 1,000 employees have purchased it. So they're expecting a lot of dashboarding details on integration with all their products which they already have. But there are like multiple products, and a smaller company may not be in a position, or even a larger company who don't have the focus to touch upon a customer who is like a huge company. So that's where that is not your focus. So in that case, you don't want to just focus on somebody who's not your right audience unless that is in your roadmap. So that way you can always get to understand what is the expectation from the customer. And I've seen some of the startups, right? Like they always tell you, if you cross certain number of employees and then you say these are the features you need, instead of saying like can you wait for 6 months or 8 months, they're always happy to refer you to a company who can provide you a better service, so that they become your ambassador, saying, oh, these guys never pushed me and sold their products when I told them it is not working out. So that's always the best way to build out your external ambassadors, whom you need not pay them, but instead they're so happy with you, they're happy to help you get additional customers.
Amazing. I don't think there are any more questions, but if anybody has a question and wants to unmute and share, we can take this final question out. Yes, Sadak, go ahead. Are you going to unmute, Sadak?
So there was a point mentioned about PR user stories essentially, and they are only supposed to have the problem that. Hello, I'm audible now?
Yes, now you are.
Yeah. So my question is that when we were talking about the point about PRDs, it was mentioned that PRDs are not supposed to have product requirements, and it's mostly supposed to be a document about what the problems that the customer is facing and the success metrics. But then PRDs are also considered as a source of truth in organizations, and it is supposed to have everything. And engineers often refer to it when they're trying to work on their tech, and designers refer to it when they're trying to make the design. So, like, should we add all of the user stories and product requirements in the PRD, or are we supposed to have a different document for that? Uh, so that's my question mostly. It's also something I struggle with because I'm not very experienced with writing PRDs. So yeah.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Arthur. That's a good question. So let me break it down. Right, I never said it should not have any, requirements or something. Right. Very simple. It should not be a dictating document. Like you build out a product, it's actually a triaging of three functions together. Right. It's a design, engineer, and product together. So usually, it's not like product comes with everything. Product does the thinking and just put it on the engineering and design. They do it. Right. It's not like that. So PRD, it's more like requirement gathering document. Then you can have a spec document. a specification document, which stems out of the discussion between engineer, design, and product, right? They get into an idea to product session. So PRD is more like an idea session, which the product manager kind of goes, does the discovery analysis, comes and document it, jumps on a meeting where all three stakeholders have a discussion. They capture a spec document or specification document. But having said that, the context changes from company to company, right? A lot of companies don't have a spec document. They just put down the user stories in their project management tool like Jira or Notion, right? So very simple. So, but the standards of whatever, if I have to say, as per the book, you can have a product requirement document where you gather the market intent. Then you can have a specification document, which would be your Bible, which your engineers and designers follow to the T. Hope that answers.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. It's nearing 1 hour and we're finishing ahead. And a huge congrats to the sprinters again. Congrats on finishing your book. And I hope you come back for the next one. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You all. Bye.